Doctors have no.
You don't care about animals, and unfortunately, you don't care about the health.
We have this, but they won't let them use those words because it might cause Americans to take action.
Hey guys, Bananiac here, and today we have a fellow YouTuber on the other side, Jovanka Ciares. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Bananiac. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So I want to ask you some questions about the plant-based lifestyle and the vegan lifestyle. But first, I just want to know, how did you find out about eating, plant-based diet, and how did you first get into that?
I got into it because I got really sick years and years ago. I had something called IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I've had ulcers most of my life. I had a lot of gastrointestinal problems. I grew up in Puerto Rico eating just what everybody else ate there, rice and beans and plantains and pork chops. And, by the time I was a young adult, I was just really ill. And I had a lot of hormonal disruption that happens when you have a lot of foods that are not the right types of foods. So the doctors couldn't give me any solutions other than put me on medication for the rest of my life or potentially do surgery. That may or may not remove a portion of my intestine. And I was like 27 when that happened.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, there's no way I'm going to walk around the rest of my life with like half an intestine. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So I started researching and reading books like The China Study and Diet for a New America and watching documentaries. And what I learned changed my life. And I started changing the diet. I didn't go cold turkey like a lot of people do. Because it was for health issues, first I started getting rid of stuff that caused hormonal disruption, like dairy and eggs and chicken. And then little by little, as I started to learn, I was like, why am I putting this stuff in my body? This is my body, and I wouldn't put anything in there that I knew was harmful. So then I started dropping everything else, like red meat and pork and everything else.
Gotcha. Wow, that's crazy. Can you tell us a bit more about that transition? You said you didn't go cold turkey, so
Right.
you said you started giving up foods that had issues with hormones, but did you start eating more healthily in return? Like, did you start eating more whole plant foods as an outcome, or?
Actually, that's a great question because the answer is no. I was what people called a muffin vegetarian, or what I call a muffin vegetarian. So I was like, I'm not eating meat. This is really great, but I'm gonna have a a carrot muffin about the size of my face, like that big, and it had processed flour and probably eggs in there too, and processed orange juice and pasta all day long. And while today I may eat some of that stuff, like I could have a little bit of rice pasta and brown rice, like I love my complex carbohydrates. At the time, I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm not only young, I've always been fairly small and slim. So I was like, I'm fine, right? Like I'm on an ideal weight and I'm just I look great. I'm healthy. When in fact, there's a lot of stuff happening inside your body that you cannot see. And if your hands get dirty if you don't wash your hands for 2 days, they get really dirty. Imagine what happens to your insides when you put a lot of crap day in and day out after many years. It doesn't feel or look like anything. And then when you turn 35 and 40, you start falling apart. And that's what I wanted to avoid.
Yeah, definitely. And that's such a great point. So much what goes inside the body, not many people can see. And as soon as they start seeing changes on the outside, there's so much done in the inside. So that's an excellent point. I want to know, because you talked about this with me before, that you come from a Puerto Rico background. Could you tell me how that played into transitioning? Was that tough coming from a diet like that, or?
It was because I loved my pork chops. I did. I loved the taste of the foods that I grew up with, and it was a little hard at first. And I think, like you and I discussed, to me it was like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm ill, but as soon as I get healthy, I'll go back to whatever I was doing before. And then slowly but steadily, as I started to learn what the food does to the body, and also what it does to our water sources and our soil and the animals that give up their lives for our nourishment, I started to realize there's energy in the food too. And this energy, whether it is a positive one or a negative one, is going to affect me, if not now, when I'm 50 or 60 or 70. So the choices that I make today are going to affect me tomorrow. I can't look away and think that because I'm, this is what it is right now, and as soon as it changes, I'm going to go back to the way I was. So it was hard from that point of view. The good news was that as I started to learn about different foods and I started to incorporate whole foods, a lot of fruit, a lot of different vegetables that I never tried before, like beets, like asparagus. I was like, what is this and what am I supposed to do with this?
Nice.
And as I started to change the diet, my palate started to change. And I started to realize that I was eating the same 6 or 7 foods over and over. And I was depriving myself really of, flavors and experiences and the pleasure of different tastes and different types of foods. And then it became more like a really exciting thing to try new foods. And how can I make this really fun and really interesting and not boring? Like eating steamed vegetables day in and day out, it's not going to cut it. You got to make it interesting. You got to look at nature and realize that just like it's a rainbow of colors out, just eat for colors. Eat for, just embrace all of that. It's fabulous.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree in that point you made with the palate. Like, I've heard Dr. Barnard and some of the other plant-based doctors out there talk about how it only takes around 3 weeks or so for your taste buds to change. So, if people stick with it, and their palate is going to start to change, and they're actually going to crave fruits and vegetables. So that's a great point. So I want to know, because you're a nutritionist, aren't you?
I am a nutrition educator, yeah.
Yeah. How did you get into that? And also, could you give advice to people out there? Because many of my viewers, they want to make a career out of this because they're so motivated. So any tips for that as well?
Yeah, so when I was still working in corporate America, like I had a fancy job and I was in an office every day, and I would walk around with my green juices and my smoothies and my big ass bowls of salad, and everybody was like, what's going on with this girl? And they would ask me for advice. They would ask me to put together little dietary plans for them, or help them do cleanses and detox stuff. And so it became very obvious that I liked the process a lot. And then people started to pay me. Like, they just said, like, as a thank you, they would take me out to dinner, or like be like, here's $50 because you did all this work. And I was like, wait a minute, can I make money doing this thing? And I started looking into it, and I realized that people are making money online, teaching others. And I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. It's just big passion. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. So I went back to school while I was still working in corporate America and finished a degree in nutrition, and then left and started talking to people. And now I go to companies and universities. I love talking to university students because they're like so bright-eyed and ready to like take information in. It's just really great. So anybody that would want to do it, I just research. They can contact me or leave a comment on the video, and I'll tell them where I went and to check it out, because it's really a labor of love, but it could also be a nice income.
Definitely, yeah. There's nothing more like I'm a dietetic student right now, and just following this path is so awesome to be able to share this knowledge with other people. So yeah, I agree, and anyone who's trying to make a career out of this, I highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
Back to your transition, I forgot to ask you one question. What was your one staple that you really focused and that really helped you out when first transitioning to that whole food, plant-based style of eating?
What I did was I stuck to the things that I loved about my culture, that I knew were plant-based, like rice and beans, for example. So that was, and to this day still is, my comfort food.
Oh, it's so good. You can't beat it.
It's just amazing. And it's, it's a full, you have a bowl of rice and beans. It's a complete protein. So for those of you out there who are a little bit skittish about like, where do I get my protein? A bowl of rice and beans, has the same, I think it's something like the same amount of protein as a 5-ounce steak. And none of the cholesterol, none of the saturated fats, you're fine. So I would go back to that. And then sweet plantains, I love them, which are the cousins of bananas.
Right.
And I used to have them fried, which is the typical way of eating them in the Caribbean. But now I just bake them, or or steam them, or just eat them raw, because it's technically a fruit. So you can totally like eat them like that. So yeah.
So plantains, I think it's different with bananas, because with bananas, they're ripe when they have those spots, but with plantains, they have to be like all black, and that's when you can eat them raw, or?
No. You can't, when they're yellow. When they don't get as yellow as the bananas, but they get like a darker yellow. When they're full yellow, yes, that's when but you can't peel them as easily. You probably have to cut them.
Yeah.
But it's technically a fruit, so you can eat. It has a higher starch content. That's why people tend to eat them with other starches.
Yeah.
And you can, boil them or put them in the oven for a few minutes. They're just, they're like God's gift to Jovanka.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to get some. Have to get some soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so you work with people when they're trying to change their diet. I want to ask you what is the most common mistake you have seen people make when they want to get on the plant-based diet, but then they're starting to go back to their old habits of eating. What would you say the number one mistake you see people make?
I think it's a combination of two things. And you and I discussed this a little earlier. It's definitely lack of education, lack of knowing the how and the why. Again, you don't see your liver, so you don't know what's happening. When something's going on in your skin, you freak out and you find solutions. But you don't notice what's wrong with your liver until you're 70, and then you freak out, and by then it's too late. And also, because we are, we tend to be known as people that go into this diet because we love the environment and we love animals and we're just animal rights activists. And that is certainly an important portion of it. But going into it for you, we are, at the end of the day, by nature, a little selfish. So you need to know why this is really good for you so that you can stick to that. Right. And the other big mistake, which was my mistake too, because that's why it took me so long, because I would go back and forth, was because meals could get really boring if you don't know what you're cooking or what you're eating. If you think that all you're going to do is eat some pasta with sauce and rice and beans and steamed vegetables, that's going to be a long life to eat only that,
Definitely.
When if instead you embrace other meals like Indian food, like Thai, like some Mediterranean dishes are just awesome. And they're completely plant-based, some of these dishes.
Right.
Embrace sauces, embrace, stir fries, just mix and match. And also, if you walk into the supermarket's product section, you'll realize that there's probably about, 50 or 60 different types of fruits and vegetables at any given point. Mm-hmm. So we in the Western world are extremely blessed that we have an abundance of alternatives and options. Let's take advantage of those. Maybe walk through the supermarket and pick one or two things that you've never tried before and find a recipe, or ask your boyfriend or girlfriend to help you if you can't cook to save your life. Whatever, do something to try something new and just make that a full experience. Like, think of it like sex. You embrace every part of your body is part of it, right? Your sense of smell and your eyes and your mouth and your hands, everything is just there.
Right.
Just make food be just awesome as a wonderful orgasm.
I like that. Make food sexy.
Make it sexy. And you realize how much fun it is to actually consume healthy foods.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's so many plant foods out there. You can have a whole wide variety, and it's really amazing. I think there's if we're talking about fruits, there's like a single fruit you can have for the rest of your life, and you every day, and you still wouldn't eat them all.
Right.
Like it's that blows my mind. So yeah, there's so much food out there. I recommend people trying new different things. Thank you so much for this interview. Any last thoughts to my viewers that you have for them?
I guess I'll just say just to wrap it up, just to remember that your body this is the only home you have to live in. You can't, if your arm falls apart, you can't go to the store and buy a new one. It just doesn't happen. So this is your only home. It should be treated as a 5-star hotel or as
Yeah.
as a luxury vehicle. And you wouldn't put crappy gas and oil in your fancy, Lamborghini or whatever. I'm not a car
Yeah.
person, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Then why would you put stuff that doesn't honor the amazingness that is this body? So every time you choose whatever you're drinking or whatever you're eating, just make sure that you truly honor the gift that you have in an able body.
Absolutely. Yeah, great advice there. So, yeah, thank you so much for this interview. I will have the link to your channel down in the description down below. So, guys, make sure to check out Jovanka's channel. Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys next time.